All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Magnet Marketers. We are ready to go today. We've got our guest with us. Our topic is what is analog marketing and how should you use it in an online world? All right. So I'm going to introduce our special guest with us. We have Damian Ross with us. He's a sales and marketing professional. He's got a background with 20 plus years in sales and marketing experience, specializing in building relationships, digital media, social engagement, and creating quality content. Damian currently works at Social Media Examiner. You might have seen him at the most recent Social Media Marketing World. He's part of their business development team, helping to grow the Expo experience for Social Media Marketing World, which is coming up. We might even be able to put a plug in for it, end of February, beginning of March 2018. And I'll let him give the specific details on that. In the social media arena, his credo is the most effective way to build brand loyalty is to entertain and educate consumers simultaneously. Think about that. His sales approach is build relationships first and value second, and then sell. That was his philosophy before the term, quote, inbound was used to describe what we now know as the inbound marketing phenomenon. As of June 1st, Damian has been traveling the country full-time in his RV as he chases 75-degree weather while looking for the perfect place to eventually call home. So the last 5 months, I believe he's now at 17 states, and you can follow him across social media at Damian Ross, ROSS.com. All right. Welcome, Damian.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
that intro bio looked a lot smaller when I typed it. I like myself a lot, I guess. My bad. I know.
It did look pretty short, but it was, jam-packed. You've covered a lot, though, in this time period, just traveling this year, which is kind of cool. And it's Halloween, everyone. So I have to ask, what are you today? I was going to ask, I kind of went just super easy, did the nerd thing. And, Damian, you're the traveler, I'm taking it.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of the hobo look, really. But, I don't do a lot of FaceTime stuff, so I'm okay with letting the beard grow out, but probably it'll get trimmed up good by Social Media Marketing World. But for now,
That's good.
We'll let it grow.
Yay.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Mike, the marathon runner in purple.
Yeah, today you could call me the city bike navigator because I was raging on my mountain bike downtown and a couple of the roads I wanted were closed, so I had to go in some high traffic areas, and so literally I was on the mountain bike weaving in and out of traffic and having a good time.
That sounds like a good time. A little dangerous, but good time. A little cold too, but
yes,
gotta get that practice in.
It wasn't 75 degrees, no.
Oh, well, awesome. I'm glad to have both of you here today as we dive into analog marketing. So I have to ask you, Damian, I have not heard analog marketing as much recently, so I'm not sure if any of our listeners have heard the term analog marketing. So can you break that down before we digest a little bit of how you can get started with analog marketing? What is
I think it's just really taking a time machine and going back to whatever we're considering kind of the digital internet age of 16, 18 years ago, and remembering kind of how you marketed when you were a small business. And a lot of it had to do with just really building relationships, and whether it be something as simple as a chamber of commerce or sending out an actual newsletter or a card, not doing really anything in bulk the way we can now with digital, but really doing it kind of as a one-off. I think that art form has been lost. Now, I will say that my relationship with you, Jessica, started online, and then I met you in person for the first time at Social Media Marketing 17, and I met Mike because of you. And that's kind of where I remember you put together this fireside kind of chat, literally next to a fireside, and there's s'mores and the whole thing. Yeah, and it was okay, so here's someone that I've built a relationship with online. Now I'm meeting them face to face, and now they're introducing me to people. And I don't know who coined the KLT, the no like trust, but I can't think of anything that really magnifies and expedites the trust aspect as much as kind of the face to face. And for whatever reason, because how easy it is to do anything digital, we've gotten so far away from that. And I guess I'm like, it's just something I've been thinking about as I've been saying, okay, I need to,
So
not that I
true.
want to grow my own brand, the Damien brand in any way, but I want to get out and start meeting more people and like being on shows. And I thought, what are people not talking about in the digital space? But we kind of do need to talk about, and it's still being analog. And I don't know if analog is the right term. I thought old school is always, it just makes it sound like it's not going to work. But for some, I think analog is still really important.
Yeah, I can so relate to this because I tell you, like how I started Now Marketing Group is I literally had flyers and I went door to door to businesses and said, "Hey, I'm going to offer you free social media training. Just show up to this event," and invited the community that came in, and then I would meet them, build relationships with them, and then it turned into, "Hey, I'm going to introduce you to my friend afterward," kind of like how we all connected. But that's how it all started from there because you don't have a budget as a small business a lot of times. And when you're getting started, you have to rely on those relationships. So I can so relate with what you're saying as far as analog marketing because it's so important. And when we're meeting at conferences and connecting afterward, like that's where the magic happens. And that's where people feel comfortable then referring you on to someone else and spreading that word of mouth referrals from there. So I can definitely see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And I'm kind of an example of that again, because I'm now on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, starting a new office of our company. But really that's my goal here. I literally I'm in a co-working space so I can meet people, and then I go out. I mean, I do more coffee than you can imagine. It's one-on-ones. I'm saying, can anyone introduce me to another one, and I just go and I meet and I hang, and it's just I'm doing it one by one.
That's why you're biking through the city. You just got all this energy you got to burn off. You're like, oh, so much caffeine.
I had
so much coffee.
Last week there was one day I had 3 meetings in 3 different parts of the city, plus my office, so 4 different bike stops. Man, I was buzzing. This place, this city is gonna know me. There's this dude in the blue jacket and the purple mountain bike raging around town.
And shaking from all the coffee. He's just like, I love coffee. I love it. Just give me more.
Who wants to meet up? Yeah. Yeah, this does remind me of a quote that I was reading from Power Branding when you mentioned the term analog marketing and kind of started explaining it. But it says reaching inboxes and mailboxes is easy, but reaching hearts and minds is a lot more difficult. So when you connect with people online, I mean, yes, you can connect with them, but you may not be reaching like that full on blown relationship. So how would you say is like, what is the balance of that then? Because like you mentioned, we did connect online first. So there is some value in that, right? We can meet people and connect with them there. But what is that balance?
I think it's actually taking a look at, there's really both ways. There's people that obviously my entire relationship with them was in what I'll refer to the analog age, whether it be, high school, college, or in kind of my late 20s, where now my relationship is solely digital with them. And without it, I probably wouldn't be connected to them. So there's that aspect of it that I really like. But then there's also the aspect of, and maybe you fall into this too, where it's like, what do you call someone when you only know them on social media? Do you really call them a friend, or do you put like, well, they're a friend, and it's
My
because you
Facebook
only
friend
know them
or,
on,
yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
you start
Yeah.
titling, oh yeah, we used to tweet at each other a lot. And so for me it's like finding that balance just in the relationships where you're taking the ones that were all analog and maybe flipping them to digital, and taking the ones that are all digital and somehow flipping them to analog. And obviously with us living just in so many different areas, that's hard to do. And it's not some sort of like sneaky little side pitch, but I feel like that's where conferences and some of these events that we go to give us that opportunity that, obviously as someone that is now like selling conference space, I just didn't realize how important relationships were. I really thought I could just say, hey, this is who I work for and this is what we do, send me a check. In a sense, like it just would have that kind of reputation. But it still really just comes down to that know, like, trust, that they've got to really, they know the brand, but now they got to like me and trust me, kind of a thing. And I can't find a better way than after, just whether it's a coffee, like Mike was saying, or, drinks or dinner, or just even hanging out somewhere and getting to really know them. I will say, I always go back in my head when I worked for Kinko's before it became FedEx Office. I used to take big clients out golfing. And there's something about 6 hours on a course, like after that, no matter what, you were friends. Like
Yeah.
and it was just 6 hours. Or you took them to a baseball game and whatever those are now, 4 to 8 hours. And you are like, your friendship is just cemented forever because you've had that interaction a one-on-one time. Now, I like Mike's idea, maybe it's just a half hour coffee and you can do that really condensed, get out, but at least there's that relationship that I just don't think completely happens yet in digital. And it's maybe because we've lived in both areas.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it does happen for you. If that's all you've ever known is digital, then you're able to build that kind of strength. But if you've known analog and digital, it's hard to get it all in digital in a sense.
Yeah. And Damien, I think I agree with you. I think the coffee is kind of like at the base level, because I mean, I can get to know someone, we can kind of we can connect or recognize that we don't connect or whatever in that short amount of time. Whereas so that's kind of like a minimum amount of time, like that half-hour time period. But I think it's about common experiences. And so when you talk about golf or a baseball game, that's a length of time in a common experience where you're both in an activity, or you're focused on something, and there's time involved there. You think back to how we really spent time together. So it's s'mores. We remember the campfire, that type of thing. So there is something about it building around that goes deeper when it's a common shared activity.
And it's not drilling down like, what do you do? And let me give you my sales pitch. All those examples have the same thing in common. It's really just hanging out with the person and being yourself and getting to know them, and hopefully having conversation that doesn't all revolve around, what do you do? And I'm just going to pretend like I'm listening so I can start talking about what I do and hopefully sell you on that thing. It's really getting down to hang out with the person, laughing with them, just, I don't know, taking it to a more personal level versus just going straight in for the kill and feeling like you have to be hardcore sales all the time.
Yeah, in my previous job, probably about 10 years ago, I was a chamber director for a couple of years for a local chamber of commerce. And I remember trying to go to my board and saying, hey, at the next mixer, let's make it no business cards allowed. And they thought I lost my mind. They're like, but the whole point is to hand out business cards. And I'm like, it's not. It's exactly what Jessica just described.
It's where you bring your box.
Yeah, it's where like I'm just spewing what I have to spew for you to, and there's really because really, it's really rare that someone connects based on their job, unless their job is phenomenal. Then someone's like, ooh, wait. Like I used to always, like, not name drop, but my mom produced The Tonight Show with Jay Leno for 25 years. I can say that and it'll stop a conversation. It doesn't matter what I do for a living. It's like, hey, what'd your parents do? Once oh my gosh, tell me about that. What's cool?
Yeah.
Did you see the celebrities? It just goes off. Or it's like, if I had a job like that, I'd probably mention it all the time. But when you don't, it's really building the relationships. And one of the things that I think got me thinking, and I kind of want to get ahead of the Gary Vee train on this, because I just saw him talk about it at Vid Summit. He basically was telling people at that conference to not go to sessions. He was saying, spend the time networking, find 5 to 8 people and build a relationship, and then later go home and watch the sessions. And now Shonduras was about to do a session. So he was like, well, I mean, after ours, stop going to sessions. It was great. But it's like, I think about that now, when I was going to conferences in 2013 compared to 2017, I'm really not going to sessions. I'm going because it's bringing a bunch of people that are in kind of the same sphere for me into one location. I think really for probably almost any business, there's a conference going on that makes total sense to at least your, kind of peer-to-peer relationships or your potential customers. But if you go there just with I'm just going to train and learn and get exhausted and not do the parties and not do the dinners and not be a connector. I mean, straight up, Jessica, you're a connector. I mean, from the fireside chat to like, hey, there's this party you should come to, and then I want to introduce you to this person, Like you already have that naturally in your DNA. And obviously that's where, the relationship marketing, obviously that's all there. But for a lot of us, it's so rewarding to be able to introduce someone to someone and then years later see their business flourish or that relationship flourish into where it's, not that you have to monetize every relationship, but if you're able to help someone, it's so rewarding.
It always comes back around. But I like your point of, not just going to all the sessions, but I think there is a point to go to the sessions. Like I definitely get a lot out of the sessions and can maybe connect with somebody in a session, but then just honestly be more selective on the conferences that you go to. That's going to give you the best of both worlds, not the ones that are your session, you're all in, and then when it's out, everybody disperses and goes back to the room, and then it's shut down until tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Find those cool conferences. And I know we did a show on this, Mike, where we were talking about some of the conferences that we've attended for marketing that we really, really loved. And of course, social media marketing world was definitely top of that list. But there's others out there. And conferences is one example. Chamber of Commerce is another example that could be potentially, when they're up to speed with not just passing out business cards. But there's other things that maybe brands can do naturally. And Mike, you mentioned coffee even on just the even basic level. If you just want to do one-off and you're not comfortable with large groups or going to parties, what are some of those other examples maybe that both of you guys have done with that analog relationship building?
The one that I just recently, and I think it's in his book, but he said it out loud, and I hate to bring up Gary again, but he talked about in the wine library days that they were doing this kind of little social experiment that when someone ordered something, his staff went and looked on them on Twitter and Facebook and tried to find out. And they found a guy that was like a huge, I want to say even like obviously an opposite team, whether it was the Giants or something to that effect, and a specific fan of one player. And they went and found this guy a jersey and they sent it to him. And, Gary sat back like, oh man, this guy's going to be blown away. I'm going to get an email from him. He's going to get it. He sees the tracking. This guy gets this $300 jersey. He only spent like $100 on wine. Nothing. He doesn't hear a response from him. So then he goes to this whole thing. They're like, oh, that's right. I'm on the East Coast. He's on the West Coast. It's going to take a while. Still nothing. Weeks go by, nothing. And I think it was a few months later that finally there was an order for like $8,000 in wine. And there was like a letter that came in with the notes where you fill out your notes saying, hey, my friend James, who you sent this jersey to, told me about your company. P.S. I love the Rolling Stones. Like this guy puts in like where he wants his little gift too. But like he obviously made such a fan out of someone that only spent a little bit of money. Now, I'm not saying to go out and buy everyone jerseys, but I can't remember the last time I got a card from someone outside of a birthday and where it wasn't where you could tell there's a label on it, there's a bulk mail stamp, there's what looks like to be an inkjet, signature, where it was really personalized. And I think we can all afford to even test and measure that. What is 100 cards sending out personally to someone and finding out some sort of personal detail, so it'd be like me emailing Mike a card and being like, hey man, I don't run triathlons. I would never even think about it, because I just can't give CPR to myself, but I'm stoked for you. And like, and anything that would go along with that, where it's like, wow, this guy took the time to learn more about me. And I think we've gotten away from that. It's just, hey man, just keep buying from me. That's what I want. Let me send you another discount code from the stuff that you can keep buying from.
I wish I had your card within reach, Mike. Mike actually does a good job. He sends out cards and it's got him on it. So, it's got muchas gracias or something like that on the front of the card. But personalized cards win. Some of those personalized gifts win every time. Mike, I know you do the cards, and we've done like Sugar Wish candies and personalized where they can go into this digital candy store. We talked about it here on Magnet Marketers a few episodes ago. And that kind of stuff goes a long way. At the conference, we did personalized gifts with just the bobbleheads for each speaker. And that kind of thing.
I saw that and was blown away. I was blown away by those.
Anything you can do more personalized, you've hit the nail on the head. That works every single time. And it's really just taking notice of those little things that are going to go a long way. And like you said, it can be something just as simple as a card, like a handwritten card. It stands out so much. Yeah.
Yep. No, even if you go back to, if you gave someone a $500 Visa card, or you gave someone a $100 personalized, and the bobbleheads are probably more than that, but let me just say, for a $100 bobblehead, the $100 bobblehead is going to have so much more traction than a gift 5X with really nothing behind it besides, hey, thanks for coming out. People appreciate $500, don't get me wrong, but if you're looking for, especially the conversations like, hey, is that bobblehead you? And it's like, yeah, where'd you get that? No one's going to be like, hey, is that Visa card yours? Where'd you get that card? That's a nice one. Yeah. I like the rainbows on that. No one does that. So,
Jessica, you got some people checking in here. So Jeff was mentioning that he had a bunch of online friends, and it was just like continuing the conversation when he met in real life at a conference. And Jeff, I was one of those, I believe. So because we had kind of followed each other online, but then it went to another level, when we were able to sit across from each other, shake hands, talk, that type of thing. And so I liked what you mentioned there, Damien, just about how thinking you're thinking about conference a little bit differently, and not so much as in just delivering information, but in providing the opportunity for the connection to take place. And then that kind of comes back to my thing. It's just about common experiences, can solidify us.
Without a doubt. And I think it's also a little bit of the prep work. I know, so I've been to social media marketing world every year. This will be my 6th year. This will probably be the greatest relationship year that I've had, just because I've consciously made efforts to get to know attendees and speakers and volunteers more than I ever. Now, I wasn't employed last year, but I still know I'm going to know more names and faces this year than ever before. And it's funny, I don't think I got this job because of this, but after I went in 2013, I was the session guy. I went to all the sessions. And I think back then you had to pay to get the at-home virtual like afterwards, where now it's included. So maybe that was part of the reason. So I just pumped through all the sessions. I didn't go to any of the parties. I was exhausted by the time I sat through all these sessions, just mentally writing notes and learning up. But I felt like I learned so much more than what I had paid for the ticket, or my company had paid for the ticket, that a few months after the event, I reached out to Michael Stelzner and asked him if I could bring him. I was director of marketing for a mattress company in California. We had 8 locations. We had our own sheets and pillows. And I just was like, hey, can I bring you some sheets and pillows? And this was before I wasn't thinking influencer or anything of that nature. I didn't think he would write a review. I just generally wanted to say thank you, because I've been following him since 2010. My first conference, never went to the virtual ones. And it gave me so much ammo to kind of grow the company's business that I was working for, and led to promotions and raises. I just felt I had to do something nice. The weird thing is that in 2016, when I went to the conference, I hadn't had much dialogue with Mike online. He walked straight up and was like, Damien, hey, how are you doing? And it had to do with that half hour, me dropping off sheets and pillows that he still giggles at when he tells people. I mean, like, here's this guy that wanted to bring me sheets and pillows. And it's this big guy with this beard and all these tattoos, and he's bringing me pillows. It was like, for him, he still talks about it as being weird, but it made a real difference with him. It cost probably the company, I don't know, $60 worth of stuff. And I built a friendship that obviously lasted 3 years that I didn't even know. And that wasn't my goal either. I wasn't like, I want to give this to him because at some point I'm going to work for him. It was not even close to even my thought process. It was just, I wanted to do something nice because I felt like he over delivered what I was expecting. And I didn't even pay for the ticket.
And I think people know that when you are leading with a heart of really taking notice and really wanting to just show that you care and appreciate that, versus you're trying to kind of stack the deck, if you will, in your favor. But that is, taking notice is the number one thing that you can do. I'll give you just a quick example, but as well, that we've done with this. But I do want to say hi to a couple people that have joined the show. Hey, Cheval. Hey, Dr. Bennett. Hey, Ron. Good to see you guys on here. And Ron, I will send you that link to the bobbleheads. And Cheval, I'm sorry that you lost your bobblehead. Hey, Craig. I'm glad you like yours. But we were closing or looking to work with a school, and it was a daycare. It had a daycare kind of built into that. And we went to their website. We always try to do some research, like you said, being your prep work, right? Finding out a lot more about the person that you're trying to build a relationship with. And we looked on their website, and we seen that they had a wish list. And the wish list was like Post-it notes and like glue and this kind of stuff. So we just brought in a little care kit when we came in and left it there, when we were done with the meeting. And that was the thing that like sealed the deal for them. Now, granted, it was part of the sales process at the same time, but just a company actually taking notice, of what their needs are and what they already had on their website and those kinds of things. Like what you said, it doesn't have to be that expensive. It doesn't have to be this elaborate thing. It just has to be taking notice, whatever that looks like in the scenario that you're trying, whether that's sales or, connecting afterward and writing a personalized handwritten note with a 37, I don't know what stamps cost now. I just buy the rolls, but the stamp
$4.
cost to send it out. Yeah, whatever it is. But just taking notice of that and then sending something personalized that person can get goes a lot farther than if you're trying to do some big elaborate thing, I think.
Without a doubt. And I want to get back to where I would never say to not go to any sessions, for sure.
Yeah.
I just think I've never gone with the mindset of, I want to meet 5 new people. And regardless if I can do business with them. I just want to meet them, get to know them, and then see what I can do to connect them. And I think that is a lost art for some reason. I think we thrived on that. Whatever 20 years ago, that's really, it was word of mouth. That's how you grew your business, and we've gotten away from it. And I think, and talk real quick about the balance, I still see it in a digital form. It's where, I had my own agency for like just a blip minute there. And the way I found clients was I would look at brands that weren't responding to comments and thought, okay, they need someone. Because literally, I used to ask like restaurants, I'd go after restaurants and I'd say, if someone was in their store and they're leaving, they're like, hey, you guys, thanks so much, best burger ever. Would you just do this? Or would you say, hey, thanks, come back, enjoy it? Because what you're doing on social media is that. When they're like, oh my gosh, we had the greatest time, it was great. And you're just sitting there like, that's exactly what you're doing. And we were able to like, break through where it's like, it's not just about analog mindset in an analog world. It applies in the digital too. I mean, people just are forgetting like how to respond, like how to say thank you, how to even like it. I mean, there's posts where I don't even see where the brand liked it. And granted, I'm not talking about brands that get, a million comments where that would be extremely time consuming. I am still talking about the mom and pop, maybe solopreneurs even. And I'm blown away that they're not taking the time to kind of build those relationships, even in the digital space. And then I wonder, what are they like in real life then? Are they like that, where it's like they just don't respond when someone says something really nice? And I think we've lost the art. I don't know what the key, there's the art of the war. I don't know what the art of the like is, or the art of the trust is, and how we've lost it in kind of our own little society. Obviously, between the three of us, it hasn't been lost. I get that, these relationships are based on, handshaking, doing something memorable, like Mike said, and getting to know each other. And it's almost 9 months later, but I still remember it. Yeah. It holds with you.
I think that's what people are afraid of. I'm sorry.
Online, offline interplay. Then when you kind of bring these two together, again, where maybe you haven't known someone online, or maybe you just met them, and then you in person, and then so you connect online, and so it's like that next time that you meet. The online can help you in that. I mean, because this is us meeting, but I've been following your treks this summer, and coming across in some of your posts from the Dakotas. I remember those, and then you kind of working your way east, and so it's kind of the online offline can assist, just with, particularly with the online. I observe what somebody's doing, and you guys have mentioned it for me. You're like, hey, the triathlon kind of thing. So people are watching. There's little pieces of what interests you, and then when you meet again, you have that point that you can talk to them about. Hey, tell me more about this, or those types of things. So there is an interplay there that is valuable, that the online, not in person, can extend and help.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. And I think we have to be careful though too, sometimes when I notice that I almost want to like disconnect, and I hope the kids aren't watching, but I almost want to disconnect with the kids from like social media and even some family, because I feel like when we do get together, like everything's already known and exposed. Like there's nothing to really like talk about in a sense. But that's just, no one's seen all my content. No one's seen every single one of my posts. That's just, kind of, and I probably do see every one of my kids' posts. I like to look and talk and see what's going on and what they're up to. But I do think there is that balance. And like you said, 20 years ago, you really had to take a guess at what someone's personal interests were and to try to figure out how to get the conversation going. Where now, really, I mean, I was telling Jessica this earlier. I had someone reply to a cold email saying they weren't interested in doing business, but they wanted to know what email service I was using. And I was like, why? What do you mean? They're like, it was so personalized and there was so much information about us. And I'm like, oh yeah, I only sent one email. That's what I did, was I took like an hour to learn more about your company. And then I didn't fill in the bubbles and like it sends it out to everyone. It was literally, I thought you'd be a great fit. I thought I'd reach out, and here's why I like your company, and here's why I think you would like our company. And even then, they were blown away because they assumed that I did it in some sort of mass, email that went out to thousands. And I was like, no, these are one at a time. These are, handcrafted. Can't you tell by the typos? This isn't a machine that's doing this, So it really is a weird, kind of, it's just such a weird space, especially if you've lived in both, and I
Mhm.
don't want to try to become romantic about, that every kid should be able to pick up a stick and, learn how to play with just a stick. I get that the way that we were brought up is going to be different than the way kids are brought up today. But there's always like a good crossover between the two. And I think both do really well in our space. And
Mhm.
because the other thing is you just don't know this, the platforms that people do really well on, sometimes they go away too.
Mhm.
And then what? Then where are you at? And I just feel like there's something missing. I don't really have like the right kind of
But
formula for it yet, but something's missing.
this is where small businesses can win though, because they don't have like the big budgets. And this is what really got me excited about social media in general, was that when I worked as a distribution partner, I'm not going to say for who, but I helped them set up mom and pop shops to sell our cell phone service. And when they did that, it was they won, and they won over business over the bigger brand because of those personal relationships. And then when social media came around, they were able to explode that because they had that mix, like Mike said, and like you've said, that they have that relationship aspect down, but now they can amplify it with using social media. But I feel like there's this disconnect too, where people are thinking, okay, I can automate that though. I can now take everything that I know about digital, and somebody's trying to sell me this easy button to just amplify it faster and faster and faster and just put a bot behind it. And I've seen these posts like, hey, is the community manager's job going to be going away because of these chat bots and this VR and this automation? I feel like people can definitely tell the difference. Can that help you? And can you use some tools like that to definitely enhance what you're able to do? Yes. But I feel like the small brands and the large as well, but the small brands specifically, excuse me, can win because they have that close relationship with their customers, and they can use their brains and their relationship over the budget and really enhance that word of mouth online experience, and really can use some of these tools to have that balance to make some definite shifts and change and growth in their brand if they do it right. Um, but you can't automate everything. There's no way of automating everything, and it still feel genuine enough to where you're going to care enough. Like you said, Damien, if the platform goes away, then I'm going to go follow you somewhere else and start over, because I may not even be reading what you're putting out right now. I've just connected with you once and don't still have that connection with you that I care enough to follow you somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think once the automation gets good enough where it is personalized like that, and the brands are using it, I think the consumers are going to have their own bot, and it's just going to be the bots talking to each other, And it's like, okay, now how do we break through? Because my bot is telling your bot that this isn't right or wrong. So that's obviously coming down the road too. And it's like,
Yeah.
I hear everyone talking about obviously, at voice and like how important, these devices in your home are going to be for marketing, and I still like as even as technically advanced as we get, I'm always going to go back to, there's nothing like sitting down face to face and having a coffee and helping you can't beat it. But I will say this, what I do like the trend that I'm seeing a lot more in social is just being transparent and vulnerable. Where I felt like, social when it first came on was, try to only showcase the best things in your life. And I think that like in the
Mm-hmm.
last year, that's not working as well. And especially, for the millennials, don't seem to really be engaging in that fakeness. They get it a lot better than we did.
Mm-hmm.
We bought
Yeah.
into it. I mean, someone made smoking look really cool, and like, and it was like you'd be a cowboy if you smoke, And I don't feel like millennials fall into that trap as much as unless it's an influencer that they've built some trust with has kind of now made them thinking that's cool. And I feel like that's a strong play to be that kind of transparent and to be that open and and have those flaws. I feel like is like the best that you can do as a company, which is great. It's unheard of in a way of marketing. We can't show people
Yes.
where we suck. Yes, you do, and yes, you can, very much so.
That's an incredibly difficult uh, concept for
Yeah.
businesses and non-millennial businesses type thing to really get a hold of. And yeah, so I encounter that all the time. You always get that question about, well, what if there's a negative comment, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think worrying about necessarily the negative comments, you know, again, I love that, the hug your haters, the Jay Bear. I think that's a great idea in a sense that,
Mhm.
we can't really worry about that. But I don't even think that they, speaking of the millennials, even take the time. I can't even remember the time I've really actually even written a bad review or sent a plate back. It just wasn't in my DNA. Where I do see that in a certain kind of genre's DNA to like, they've got anytime something bad happens. A quick example. So when I bought this RV, I was so excited until I joined their Facebook page of their owners. And the only time an owner came on was to say where something was going wrong. And I was like, what did I do? What did I buy? This is terrible. Now, knock on fake wood. I don't even know if that's real wood. I haven't had any kind of issues, but I was terrified because all people talked about was all the negative. Now, I will say too, what's been amazing is this kind of lifestyle, living digital nomad, full time in an RV, the community is really all digital in a sense. I mean, granted, I can get out in a campground and meet people like no one's business, especially being from California. People from California aren't over on the East Coast doing this at all. And so I or you're from originally Los Angeles, Orange County. That's crazy. What are you doing here? Everyone moves there. Why are you over here? Kind of a thing. But the groups are phenomenal. The engagement, the conversations, the response. You ask a question, how do I do this? You get 500 people. And unfortunately, they're not reading the other responses. It's 500 people telling you the exact same thing, or, me getting there and being snarky and funny. But it's just the groups. I've never really been involved in that, like this is our group. And there's probably people that are, they're Jeep owners and they're in that group, and it's a cult in a sense almost. But those groups are fantastic. And I know that anytime I put, well, this is the campground I'm at, if any's in the full-time RV group or the RV I own group, they are like, oh my gosh, we're there too, or we're there last week. And all this is a complete stranger giving me tips that, like my own cousin would give me about a location. And it's amazing. Like I love, and so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't do digital at all. There's that great balance.
I think you have a good point with the Facebook groups, almost like what Facebook just rolled out with their announcement, where I don't know if you've seen this, but I'll share the link, where they're testing it out in other countries right now, but they're talking about having Facebook brand pages being removed from the home feed. Like you would have to literally, if you want to see a brand's content, which I'm sure we're all signing on to social to do, like, hey, I want to go see what this brand's doing today. Not really, but you're going to Facebook and now it's going to be in a separate explore tab. So thinking about what you just said about these group communities that are interesting to you and you're connecting with them, I'm almost wondering how this will all play out and everything that you're talking about right now with that latest update.
Yeah, so before, I mean, obviously I learned about this update from you. Before I even knew about that, a lot of these groups I've had to kind of turn off notifications anyways, because there's just so much going on in the groups and you're just always getting notified. And so for me, there's part of me that likes it, especially from a group standpoint or my own kind of personal interest, because that is something that I go to the group when I want to help out and add value, or if I need a question asked. Do I need to see? And people do ask the same question over and over. As an admin of that, yes, the black one is for the black tank, the gray handle is for the gray tank, the white handle is for the fresh water. Read your manual. I hear people Google it. Like that's what everyone, after a time period, you say that. So I could see how that could really bog up the feed. But for a small brand that has done a really good job getting someone to like them from a 1 or 2 visit that now is not going to show up in the timeline and kind of remind them, that's a really hard space. I mean, you're going to have to really figure out a way to drive people to your page, I don't know what, monthly, I guess. It's going to be tough.
Yeah. Or build your own group. Like we literally just said to people, look, we are creating a Facebook community group around what we're trying to do with our Facebook page anyway, which is share social media updates, give you some best practices and let you ask us questions right here. Would you like to be added to this group? And literally like 37 people or so commented within the first 24, 48 hours time period that said, yes, I would like to be in the group. And then a couple people said, hey, do you care if I add so-and-so? Do you care if I add so-and-so? And I'm like, no, please do. Like, that's what we wanted our Facebook page to be anyway. And it's been kind of awesome. The first day, too, that it was open, people are already asking questions in there a lot more freely than they would on our business page. So they're just literally asking questions and like answering each other's questions even in there. So that it is like this little community hub, even though it's under the brand page being managed, it feels very much, I don't know, way more personal, way more connected. Like you're almost in this separate room having that private session versus you're out there, on this page where it's not as personal. So I'm hoping that I'm with you that this trend does continue, because then you're with your people, you're with this like-minded group, and the page can maybe just be for generalized updates, but then you can find your tribe within this community. And I feel like it has to be around a theme, though. It has to be around something that everybody's interested in, around some kind of passion, purpose, something that everybody can connect with. And it doesn't necessarily have to be related to exactly what the brand's doing, but it should be kind of aligned to help you build that relationship faster.
Yeah, the only negative that I think I've seen in the last year in groups specifically, and it's with adults. I mean, granted, so let's just take the RV living. At 46 years old, I'm actually kind of young to be in this space living full time in an RV. And there are 20 and 30s that are doing it and really picking up on it. But really, it's almost like a 60 plus kind of, post work, newly retired kind of lifestyle. The bullying that goes on is phenomenal in a sense. Like people say things that you would never say to me face to face in a Starbucks. If I ask this question out loud, the responses I get would never be, "Oh, you're an idiot. How are you doing this, full time and you don't know how to do this basic thing?" Because I'm new. I'm learning. I didn't try to become and I thought about like groups as a parent. Like if I went in there as a parent, like, okay, we just brought our kid home and, here's a question we want to ask. How are you even a parent? I should call child services. Like I could see that like happening. That's the one thing I think where people are going to have to admin groups, especially when it's built around something that they're passionate about. It is. I mean, I'm in a drone group that I've completely, opted out of just because people would ask really basic questions and they'd be told they're basically a moron and they have no business trying to be a professional droner. And people are like, who's trying to be professional? I didn't even know that was a profession, but who's trying to be a professional droner? I'm just trying to get some cool aerials of where my camper is, and it's like, that's the one part. I don't know what it is with groups that I feel I see because it's not, I don't know the reasoning behind it because I don't feel like I see that
needs
on
a community
pages.
manager, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's tough because there are a lot of the same questions asked over and over. Maybe there's just not a good enough search feature within groups, or if it's like here's the top 10 things that people ask in our groups, and look through this first and then add it. There's just not that way of like connecting. Like I'm the guy that's always like let's take YouTube for an example. There's many people that I'd like to subscribe to, but I would really love to subscribe to a certain playlist as opposed to the person. So they might have where they do tech reviews and how-tos and all these different things. There's so many of it that I don't really care about, but there's this one playlist that they do. I would love to just be able to subscribe to that. And I feel like, that's where groups have really been able to do great. It is a really niche kind of playlist and it makes it easy. But I'm worried about, like you're saying, like the pages, them coming off the feed and groups staying in. I think you're just going to see people switching to groups. Why would you keep a page besides what check-ins at your location? I don't understand why you would keep a page if it's not going to show up in timeline and remind people about you. It's really tough.
Yeah, there'd be a switch. Absolutely. Hey, there's one question out here, Damien, for you from Terrence. He's saying, where do you see face-to-face communication in 2025? So he says Zuckerberg is promoting avatars and virtual meeting spaces. So, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I can't remember the movie with Bruce Willis. Do you guys remember that, where you like got into a chair and then your bot went out for you?
Yeah.
I mean that terrified me from like just a connection standpoint. But I mean, if people are getting shot and stabbed out in the real world, that sounds great. I think 2025, if you think about how much we've kind of evolved in the last 10 years, I think everything goes in kind of interesting cycles. My son, who's 24, living in New York, would love a really cool flip phone. And he actually, if he had it his way, he'd probably like to not have a cell phone at all. Like that's that community that they're kind of, that's the way that they kind of fight the system. So I think you will see kind of a trend where there are some people that'll get kind of really anti-digital and really get it back to, I'm not saying they're going to, become Amish or anything of that extent, but to where they take some of these interactions and make it a lot more personal. I don't think I ever want to lose it. Anytime I land in a spot, I try to put it out there. Every once in a while, someone say, "Hey, that's where I'm from. We should meet and have coffee." And I'm never going to say no to that. And a lot of people will, ask that because of, the position of my company, but they don't realize that I have nothing really to do with Social Media Examiner. It's really all with the event. But that's okay even. I mean, that's fine. I can answer questions and be a kind of a brand ambassador and meet someone in a local community. And, I'm going to find out what's really great to do in this town from someone that lives in the town. So I'm always going to be open for face-to-face. I'll probably the only time I say no is if I'm exhausted. Like, other than that, I always say yes to any invite I get. People ask me all the time, what's your favorite food? I always say free. And if someone's inviting me over to their home, I have yet to be charged at someone's home, for food. So if they're like, hey, you should come over and have dinner with, I'm there, let's do it, and the relationships are fantastic. I hope, it was Terrence that asked the question, I hope we don't get away from that. I hope we just find better balance in the next 10 years, for sure.
Surrogates, that was Bruce Willis.
Yes, surrogates.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah. To answer your question or what your comment about the pages, what I think it's going to become is what Facebook's trying to make it. It's almost like a website. It's like for companies that don't have you can sell there now, you can put your services there. I feel like that's going to be like everything for news and website, and they're trying to make it more like that versus the community that it was built for, because they want the advertising dollars, and they know if you have that set up that way, the businesses translate that into being able to promote it and add some ad revenue behind there. I don't know, but I do like the idea. I don't want us to go away from face to face. I do like the idea of virtual reality and going into different rooms and connecting that way, because I feel like it's going to add that extra layer to conversation where you can stay connected, and it's a little bit more personal than messaging, right, back and forth, because there is such a passive aggressive tone when people are just typing versus looking at someone, even if it's an avatar. I feel like they're just so much more ready to just go passive aggressive on people in groups, like you've said, Damien. Like it's kind of a different behavior than you would expect to see in real life when people connect. So I'm with you on not wanting that to go away. So we want to see if there's any other questions for Damien, because this has went super fast. Really good conversation. I feel like that 45 minutes flew by like that. But any last finishing thoughts that we haven't covered, Damien, on the topic?
No, I think it's an interesting kind of conversation, especially when all of us are so focused on kind of the digital world and trying to figure out how to take these relationships and friendships and partnerships offline, for a time being, and just really being able to connect. It's not always going to be possible just because of geography for people to be able to do this, but there's enough of people in wherever you live to be able to do this. Don't just, and then you're bringing those people, you're meeting them in the analog world and you're bringing them into your digital space. So you're doing that one first. But when you have the opportunity where someone, is in your digital space first, and for some reason you're within a geo kind of little circle to be able to connect, figure out a way to connect. And again, going back to, it's not just to pitch the conference I work for, because our conference isn't for everyone. I get that. But there really is probably a conference, convention, expo, some sort of training that's exactly for you and your business, and probably your prospects and partnerships and relationships are there. And everyone's there to meet someone. Like it's like a school dance, but not as awkward. I mean, it can be at sometimes for sure, but it's like they're there for the same reason. And I think you kind of said it too, Jessica. If we get out of I'm not going to try to sell this person on the first date. I'm basically just going to go and build a relationship. And, we might look back, who knows, maybe one day I introduce Mike to a deal that's $1 million deal. And, that'd be amazing. I'd be so happy that I did that. Like, hey, I knew this person and it worked out connected. It just became this business. I'm going to think back to that's all came out of having s'mores in San Diego at like an outside campfire. And I don't know if we ever would have been able to get there if it was just, maybe I'll watch, what's going on socially. So for me, I think just put some time, even if it's 10%. Remember we used to talk about put 10% of your time into social media? Like, you guys, don't ignore this. This is going to be good. Take at least 10% of kind of your time, your budget, and your marketing, and put it into social media. I'm just saying, like, take 10% of your time and put it into face-to-face and and one-off kind of cards, emails, whatever it is, just 10% of your day, of your week, put it towards analog marketing, for sure.
There you go.
Mike, any last finishing thoughts for you?
I've been following the trail here, and I know we can't go into it, but Craig Carpenter, shout out to him. He mentions that it can be argued you're technically having a virtual chat right now, and so it just kind of dawns on me that what we're doing right here is a little bit of a middle ground between the analog, because we're not together physically, but the online where it's just, you're watching something that someone else posted, like from the audience now. I mean, Cheval, Craig, Emily, anybody, do you feel like you're a little bit more up to date, or you've connected with, Jessica, Damien, myself a little bit more just because you've been here with us in this? I think so. There's this little middle ground that we're in right here, which is, not quite, it's not the analog, but it's not only digital.
And what's great about this too, what you're saying is, this reminds me of being in a coffee shop and you hear three people talking, and it's really awkward to try to listen, and it's even more awkward to like interject a question or a statement. But here in this space, you can completely do that, and it's not like you're just a creepy guy that happened to be listening 2 tables over. Now you want, oh, by the way, I've got a great example. Let me ask you a question. So I do agree that one isn't necessarily better than the other. There is a really good mix. And you're right, this right here is a connect. This is something that'll probably move us from talking about s'mores and campfire to, hey, remember that one time we were on the show and we're all in different locations and we're talking, and it's like we thought Mike was on a kayak because we didn't understand what he was saying. It's like that, this is our new connector moving the relationship forward, even though it's all digital. For sure.
I love it. I could talk about this stuff all day, seriously. It is relationship marketing. That's where it all boils down to relationships. It really does. And it's going to become more and more important as the world becomes noisier and noisier, and there's more interruptions that are pulling for our attention. So definitely, I love the idea of taking the 10%, whatever it is, to personalize. I did share a link to something we talked about on some tools that will help you personalize. Sounds kind of counterintuitive, but some tools that will help you personalize some of the maybe gifts even, or cards, or videos, video emails. I tell you, video emails, every time I've sent a video email back to someone that I haven't been able to meet in real life, they love it. So tools like that, I did share the link in our notes here in the comment thread behind on the Magnet Marketers Facebook page for you to check out. And Damien, I would love for you to put your connection, your Twitter handle, or the best way for people to get in contact with you there as well, so people can ask you follow-up questions if they're watching the replay. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Damien, for your time. Always great to see you, Mike. We are Magnet Marketers. Our goal is to always help you become a magnet with your marketing versus being a bullhorn. Thank you for spending 45 minutes of your day with us. If you'd like to know about next week's show, you can go to magnetmarketers.com, get under the Get in Touch, subscribe there. We'll let you know what's to come. And we're here every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of your week.
Take care, guys.
All right, take care.
See ya.